What up?
Oh, well, welcome everybody to another Tuesday for Bobby's Cryptid Corner. I'm so excited to be here. How are you two doing today?
Great. We're missing one person.
We are. We'll just address it. So we're actually technically beginning our summer break vacation starting today. That'll be this week and next week. I'm here this Tuesday. Bree will be here in my place next Tuesday, and I'll be gone. We'll be swapping out the days in between when we're during vacation. We have tons of stuff that's already pre-uploaded that'll be dropping for you guys for premieres. So don't worry, there's the content for you while we're gone. But tonight, Bobby, Tony, what the fuck are we talking about?
Hold on. Tony didn't get to answer how he was doing.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, Tony. How are you?
Well, I'm good. One, you guys know I live in Kansas, and it is hot as shit outside right now. And the last couple days, we've had 40-mile-an-hour winds. So when you go outside, it's like walking into a convection oven. It's just 100-degree heat blasting your face at 100 miles an hour.
Oh, no, that's horrible. I'm going to tell you, I'm in Vegas and it is like 115 on a regular day here right now. So I also feel your very shitty pain of that.
even when it's a dry heat, 115 is still pretty.
It's a bit much.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
Here's the thing.
You will die extended periods of time instead of spent in that.
I can handle it for the most part. My biggest problem is like I have this back balcony area and the sun just points at it when it gets about 4 o'clock in the afternoon until about 8 o'clock at night. And it is just the hottest fucking thing in the entire world. And that's the only part that kills me. Everything else I'm fine with.
I haven't been outside since March of 2020, so I don't know what the fuck you guys are even talking about.
That's about right.
We're all in this together.
Can I mention something that has kind of been bothering me?
Yeah.
So I made a TikTok the other day. It got it's almost at like 3,000 views. It's kind of getting dumb.
Okay.
But I just was making a joke out of somebody who was being sexist. And somebody goes, "Is this Jim from The Office?"
No. And now everyone is like, "Oh my God, it's Jim from The Office."
No, and then I looked up. I was like, "Jim from The Office?" And I was like, he doesn't mean John Krasinski. And I looked it up and I'm just like, hold on. And then I do another TikTok and I've got his face next to mine. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of bothering me.
You look more like Jim from Mississippi, if that makes you feel any better.
That makes me feel way better. Jim Bob from Mississippi.
That's a vibe. All right, you guys, what are we talking about tonight?
Werewolves.
Oh my God, that is the magic drinking word, everybody. Yeah.
I know that this idea for werewolves came up organically last episode, and we just kind of went with it, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be presumptuous here and say that this is what month is it? June. This is a Halloween in June episode.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I like that. That's a vibe. I also feel like we are tackling another one of those topics where we really should have done like an 800-part series, like mermaids, but we are just going to do a
whole new podcast on werewolves.
And just on werewolves. But we're just going to be doing an overview of like the lore and where werewolves came from tonight. We're not going to be diving too much into modern day stuff. That's really going to be saved for further episodes, like when we do like specific areas, like where there's hotspots and stuff like that, or like towns that have specific werewolves or dogmen or things like that. And we've actually done one before. We've done Briar.
If you're eager and anxious for a specific modern werewolf / dogman sighting, go watch our. Don't do it now, but after this broadcast, go watch the Beast of Bray Road episode that we did a few months ago.
Exactly.
There's a really good documentary about that, by the way.
The Small Town Monsters one.
Yes.
Small Town Monsters, everything they do is super great.
My fucking shit. So good. It's my fucking shit, Tony.
It's my shit.
Okay, before we get super jumped into it, we do want to say hello to everybody in the chat. We are not trying to ignore you or anything. We are indeed just trying to focus on this very research-heavy topic that we didn't realize that we were doing to ourselves. So
go back to that werewolf you just showed me there.
Oh, the one it's going to play. So we're talking about werewolves tonight here. This is a little video for you. This is kind of like the classic of what we think happens with werewolves. This is, look at that. How
look at that
sexy grandpa monster.
He's got the V going.
He's real into it. So here's the thing with mermaids. I went a little scary, and with the werewolves, I did tend to go for the imagery a little bit sexier. Trying to
werewolves?
just spice it up. Yeah, I did. I wanted like sexy werewolves. Like you didn't see the one at the beginning, blown drying his hair.
I think we had sexy mermaids, if I'm not alone on this one.
Well,
we had a couple that were
at least
like
tried.
Yeah,
there were some not sexy mermaids as well. But hey, let's party.
Oh, you know what? Right. Don't get ahead of yourself, Roach. We have a whole section for that we're gonna have where we talk about werewolf movies. So don't you worry.
Oh, I got you, dog. Don't even worry about that.
Yeah. So, Bobby, what do werewolves look like?
Werewolves look a lot like the legendary dogman of American cryptid folklore. They are basically a bipedal, but I believe they can also run around on all fours if they so choose to. A giant hominid mix between a very sexy, muscular man, much like Beast from the X-Men, and I guess a wolf or dog-like creature. When you combine those two together, you have very sexy X-Men Beast fan fiction. Yeah, but this is more of a dog and less of a beast from X-Men. I've been drinking.
That's the charm of the show. Don't you worry. One thing I do want to say that's been very prevalent in all of my research is that werewolves do not have tails. That is the big distinction between them and werewolves and wolves. Like that's that line that's crossed there. And a lot of people say the reason for that is like that's like the witched versions of them. Like that's how you know it's a witch, is because it doesn't have its tail.
That's a tail is very reminiscent of a animal creature, right? Or
so they're trying to take that away.
But if you want to, I think it's a perfect distinction of like the human aspect of a wolf, or being possessed by a wolf being possessed by a human in some sort of hybrid situation. I think that the lack of the tail is more symbolic than we might actually give it credit for.
Exactly.
And while we're at it, can we just talk real quick? I just want to mention this. Werewolves don't have tails, and I don't want to jump the gun here, but being bit by a werewolf, turning you into a werewolf, is strictly a product of Hollywood.
Yes.
Don't worry, we'll get there. We'll get
there. Sorry. I just felt the segue and I went with it, but I fucked it all up.
I was like, no, we're going on an evolution of werewolves here. So we have two different versions. Yeah, Bobby, we'll get there. Everyone, I feel like every time we get out here, we all get on top.
I'm sorry.
We all get ready to go. No, it's okay. All right, so we have two different versions.
We don't
like the English
anything.
Word. I know. You weren't here before. I showed Tony before. That's my fault.
I don't prepare anything.
I know, it's okay. All right, so you have two versions here. You have werewolf and lycanthropy, and I don't know if I'm saying that right. Lycanthropy. There we go. That's the Greek version. And the big distinction between the two things that we're going to be talking about going forward is there's a human beings that change into like a humanoid wolf, and then there's just like humanoid wolves. There was no human version of that humanoid wolf. It was always a humanoid wolf. And then there was a human being that can turn into one.
Yes.
Yes, Bobby.
Yes.
Okay, so see, I did not know this. I thought a lycanthrope was always. I thought it was like a square and a rectangle. Like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square.
I get you.
Right. Yeah. It's like a 3D square.
But that's the ambiguity of myth and folklore in general, I think, and I think we might be getting into that a little more later. I'm not going to jump the gun
and also
again.
The distinction between the two is interesting because I feel like also part of that has to do with like what these beings are. So like some of them are beings and some of them are humans that are cursed and stuff like that. So there's a big distinction between the two. So I think that's why they have the two names that are attached to them.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to start in Indo-European mythology, which is like early Native Americans, the native people inside of Europe and all those areas. And where really werewolves started to be talked about was this initiation of the warrior class where being a werewolf was a part of your character when it came to like going out and fighting and things like that. So like you would do rituals or you would wear the pelts of werewolves or things like that to take on and embody what that werewolf stood for, which was very animalistic and savage and like super strong and has like, can go on forever and can take on anything and fight anyone.
Almost like the whole berserker thing, right? Like
very much like so.
The Vikings embracing your animalistic instinct to murder and conquer other beings.
Yeah, you bring up a good point because when we talk about like the Indo-European lore, we're talking about the Goths or the Druids of Central Europe during the early Roman era in
Pre-Christianity.
Yeah. And it was all like everybody wore pelts and that's how they fought. Like they killed the wolf that pelt that they're wearing, and they embody that spirit of that vicious animal in their minds, and they fight like that. So
Oh, 100%. That was a big part of a lot of their rituals and sacrifices that they did. And I think a lot of Native American people today still practice is like when you take the life of something, you are taking on the spirit or the soul of that thing. Like if you're the one taking it, then you're embodying that. And that's a big part of how that plays into like the wolf being a part of who you are when you fight, because they think of the same way. Like the reason you're wearing it is not just because you're acting like it, but you're the one who cut that skin off. So you are that animal now.
And at the very least, they're a lot closer to their food. They're not just throwing out, the dark meat that they forgot to eat.
They use every piece of every piece that they're
not dumping it into the city provided compost bin that's in my garage right now. They really took advantage. They sucked the marrow out of those things and really embraced the former livelihood for calories and for spiritual wartime power, I guess.
It was their entire society was you.
Wait,
you embodied all of.
Did they eat the wolves? I guess is what I'm asking.
They did.
I would assume so. Like you can't just you wouldn't throw that away. Absolutely not. They would use every piece they can. The fat would be rendered down to help store things. They would be using the skins, the claws, the bones, the teeth. I mean, they would be using every piece of it. That's all they had. And
if I'm not mistaken, in Indo-European, the wolf, I believe, is the biggest and fiercest predator. Like in the UK, for example, they don't have like bears, right?
Well, the UK, I don't think ever had bears, but I think in continental Europe, off the island, they
definitely do in like Russia and stuff. Yeah,
but I think grizzlies, I think their range actually covered into Germany and stuff. You just didn't see a lot of it because they killed them all off because you just can't.
Because they're fucking bears.
Yeah, you can't live around them.
They're terrifying.
Fucking bears. Exactly.
Right on. That's interesting. Yeah. So I guess, I guess you do see, bear pelts being worn from time to time in various cultures. But the wolf, I always, whenever you think of a pelt or like a warrior class wearing a pelt, even like, you got like the old Lego factions of like the wolves or whatever. They're on shields. I don't see any bears on shields. I see wolves though.
Not very often, no. Not unless you get up into like Norway or Sweden.
Okay. Yeah, it was like I think that has a lot to do with the regionality of those animals, and so a bear was a bigger predator in that area, so therefore thought of as bigger than a wolf. So that's why they use their version of it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So another really surprising area that is super rooted with all this werewolf stuff, everybody drink. And excuse me for not putting up the fucking thing every time, but Bree's not here and I'm the only one doing everything.
I think it just interrupts things.
Apologize.
Anyway.
Sometimes it does.
They need to pay attention.
Pay attention.
It goes deep into Greek lore, and we're going to start at the beginning. This is all kind of as chronological as I can get it, kind of leading up to modern time. So and again, I'm going to pronounce things so fucking wrong. So my deepest apologies to anybody who has anything to do with this. The Neuri, a tribe, they were all transformed into wolves once a year for several days and then changed back to their human shapes. And this was inside of a writing from this guy, I don't know how to say his name, Pomponius Mela.
Yeah.
May I already throw a
100%
skepticism theory about this particular situation? Back in the day, in these ancient times, they had things very similar to something like, say, the Purge. Not necessarily like you're allowed to commit crime, but it's just like debauchery, right? Mardi Gras is very much that last purge before Lent, that kind of thing, which we'll get to that also. So go back to that last one, if you don't mind, if you can.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So like, I believe that people were still able in like human beings are able to like take poetic liberties, and that's like one of the things that separates us from the animals, right? No pun intended with this episode. Transforming into wolves, I mean, that could be, if we're not necessarily interpreting that as some sort of literal description. It's very much likely that someone's just describing several days of people just pent up or whatever, like ritualistic yearly thing that they do.
Yes.
Where everyone just like eats and fucks, basically, right?
Yeah, they're fucked up on acid and
absolutely.
They do the acacia bush or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the picture next to this, which is a pottery that was from that time, literally depicts that's exactly what's happening. Does this not kind of look almost like a ritual where they're like transforming into the wolf? And who's not to say that they were just actually like they were describing it in the words that they knew how to use? I think that whenever we think about going back in time at any of this, we have to understand that their language was not as complex as ours is, and so the way that they would describe things were like very the best that they could with the words that they had. So you have to take it with a little bit of grain of salt.
They couldn't be like, I don't know, like whatever they weren't going to be like. Everyone was acting like a canine, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Like, it was just, and you see that a lot today. You see people still using like animal terms to describe like raw primordial behavior. For example, the band, the Bloodhound Gang, you and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals.
Right.
So let's do it like we do.
That's something that transcends time and culture, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
The Bloodhound Gang.
And I think it's important to point out the relationship between man and wolf, even going back as far as the ancient Greek days. I mean, we had already domesticated dogs at that point. So we have this deep cultural connection with these animals to begin with.
Yeah.
And then there's like the villainous side of them, which is the wolf, the uncontrollable.
It's a familiar.
Yeah.
And
like
I think
that a dog-like creature is a familiar because we think of them as these like we've domesticated them to a degree at this point. We've bred them over centuries to look. One looks like a Frenchie, the other one looks like a Mastiff or whatever. It's fucking crazy. If you dig it, like take an afternoon and just dig into like the genetic history of dogs, it'll blow your goddamn mind.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
So it's almost like the vampire or the witch in the sense of like a human transforming, right? But our other familiar is like the canine. Like that's it literally is. I think about it all the time when I've not been doing drugs, about like if you stare at your dog, you're just like, you really are man's best friend. Like what the fuck, just you get lost in that thought, and it's so true that phrase is so dismissed. So if we take that loyalty between the two species and then turn it to the evil side of things, these types of things can manifest as evil creatures as well.
Well, and I think that that's a big part of the lore, though, because what you're going to start to realize as we go over these is what happens and we start to see it in this story right here, is your bad actions start to be associated with this animalistic side of you. And because you're embracing that animalistic side of you, you turn into this werewolf. And so that's a big part of this lore. So right here we have Lycanon, the son of Pegasus, angered the god Zeus when he served him a meal made from the remains of a sacrificed boy. And as punishment, the enraged Zeus turns Lycanon and his sons into wolves.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So because he was like, I'm not trying to be
where
a
we get
cannibal.
Lycanthrope.
Why are you serving me small boys? That's exactly. And he turns them 100% into these wolves, and they live their lives like that.
Wait, he was mad that the guy was mad that he wasn't being served small boys?
No, he was. No, he was like, how dare you serve me, small boy?
How dare you not? Oh, okay. Wow, that's weird.
Yeah, Zeus was angry that he was eating small boys, which kind of goes
that's so
into
un-Zeus of him.
It is, because he's pretty fucked up. But it kind of goes into this whole idea that like werewolves are a punishment. Like it's kind of like the Wendigo is a punishment in Native American lore for cannibalism. It's kind of like the same thing, right?
It's a curse. In some cases, it's a curse. Then we have, like we were seeing earlier, the Lycanthrope, which was when Zeus just turned people into wolves, and they didn't transform, right?
No, but they were turned into wolves,
right? But they couldn't turn back, like when there wasn't a full moon or some shit.
Right.
Right. Okay.
No, there was no turning back for them. Okay, hold on. My computer's
There's no turning back for you,
fucking up right here. So I gotta go back a little bit because this is getting ahead of itself here.
Oh,
hippos are fucking horrible. Is there a were hippo?
That would be the worst animal ever.
Oh, horrifying.
100%.
Fuck hippos.
We should do a whole episode on hippos. I don't believe they're real.
Not that they're cryptids, just that they kill more fucking people.
Hippos aren't real.
All right, so we have Demarcus of Pariasa was turned into a wolf after tasting the entrails of a human child. So again, you have more of that idea of cannibalism here. That was sacrificed to Zeus, and he was resorted to human form for 10 years. He was resorted to human form for 10 years and went on to become an Olympian. So like he was able to like overcome it after a period of time, and he ended up going and like living his life. So this is the first time where you have somebody like getting an action for their like a consequence to their actions, but then like redeeming themselves from it.
Right.
He broke the spell.
He did. So there's a lot of magic going on with all of this. It's very like
magic episodes.
Mystic and magical. But
like
I feel like that's the best part.
Yeah.
This is a magical mystery, and it's part of our history episode of Bobby's Cryptid Corner.
Oh, I like that. It kind of rhymed. So this was not a one-off event, but rather tons of men have been transformed into wolves and during the sacrifices to Zeus because they end up eating the sacrificed children. And if they abstain from tasting human flesh while being wolves, they would be resorted back to human form 9 years later. But if they didn't, then they would be wolves forever.
So that's actually really interesting because a lot of people don't know that wolf attacks on people are incredibly rare.
Yeah, they're not like they don't chase after humans.
Despite the movie The Grey, wolves attacking humans are super, super rare, like to the point to where it's like a minuscule percentage of people that come across wolves get attacked by wolves. And that kind of feeds into the idea that if you become a wolf and don't eat a person for 9 years, you'll be a human again. And they would probably contribute to why, like, if you saw a wolf in the wild back then, it didn't attack you.
And again, going back to kind of what I was saying earlier, like wolf could just be kind of an allegory for just a general predator. Like this could have been passed down the ages with the, again, poetic liberty. They used the wolf originally, and as it got, it just morphed into a wolf through, oral tradition or whatever. Again, allegories are and mythology is like super fucking important when considering the realism of this stuff.
Oh, for sure. And so, Bobby, you touched on this point a little bit at the beginning of it. So this is Plenty the Elder. In Arcadia, once a year, a man was chosen from Anthus's clan. The chosen man was set to a marsh in an area where he hung his clothes onto an oak tree, swam across the marsh, and transformed into a wolf, joining a pack for 9 years. If during these 9 years he refrained from tasting human flesh, he would be returned to the same marsh, swam back, and recovered his previous human form only 9 years older. So again, you have almost that same exact story, older, and they're still saying that it's going on. But this one, instead of it being during when the sacrifices are, it's like somebody is chosen from every village, and they have to go through this and the trials and tribulations of it.
Ooh, yeah, and it's almost like a cleansing process. Maybe in the tribal sense, it was for the whole village or whatever. There, it's almost like you're paying your debts to society by refraining from eating small boys. And then if you do it for long enough, hey, you're good you have been redeemed.
Oh, very much so. It was very much seen as like as a community thing. It wasn't just for the individual. The reason like it was a random lottery is because they like pick somebody who they thought would represent their community well, and then that mean that there would be good harvests and things like that, and the gods wouldn't fuck with them because look at us, we as our society are not falling into our animalistic side of things. We are being human. So it was a big reflection on everyone.
I think we should go back to that, to be completely honest.
I feel you, actually.
This is a good way to get to get society right.
I think we need to appease the gods in the year 2022.
Exactly. Okay, so this is really where the Christians kind of get introduced into the werewolf side of things, and where the idea of werewolves start to change from your bad behaviors, and it's like is an outcome of you being a werewolf, and now it's the devil is making you a werewolf. So
Satan.
The biggest influence of that was from Augustine of Hippo, who is a saint, by the way. He wrote In the City of God, and he explains in a part that it is very generally believed that by certain witches, spells, men may be turned into werewolves. So it was like witches, devils, spells, and things like that. And that's really what kind of took off the next 15th, 16th, and 17th century of like a hysteria of werewolves within like modern day Europe and France.
Yeah, it's very similar to the way we see pop culture implanting ideas of these mythological or science fiction horror type creatures as well. We talk about it all the time, how the flying saucer is distinctly a 20th century thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It was airships in the 1800s. It's like whatever comes down from the top to like fill the void of whatever that archetype is that we can't explain. We do so from the powers that be. So in this case, we have
and
werewolves.
Now that we're getting in, I just saw the name.
Oh, I know that guy.
Yeah,
I don't even
King
know what that means.
Canut. Totally says
King
Canut.
Canut.
So when we get into the Middle Ages, this is where we start to talk about what initially brought this on, the fungus ergot. And ergot is a it's like acid, it's a psychedelic drug, causes
Mushrooms.
Yeah.
Psilocybin. I can never say that.
Psilocybin.
Psilocybin.
Yes, that one. We're all doing really good, everybody.
We're doing great.
Drink.
Exactly.
So ergot causes hallucinations, and it destroys wheat crops. In France, and especially in the Middle Ages, bread was a really big food staple. So when you had a fungus like this that can destroy the crop, you have to blame it on something. And you have people dying of malnutrition. And if they're at the edge of your little town or whatever, and they're dying of malnutrition, a wolf or a coyote or any other predatory animal is going to come in and take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they would attack a healthy person.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what really starts off.
So it's like a bad omen.
Yeah.
But it was still explainable through like natural phenomenon.
Right. The person is sick, they're hallucinating, they're fucked up, and they're walking out of town, and they're falling over, and they can't defend themselves.
It's like a vulture watching something about to die.
Yeah, any natural predator is going to look at that and go, well, I'm eating today.
Yeah, it's like, oh, there's dinner.
Yeah.
So when the people that aren't dying see the wolf, they see it, they connect it to death and despair and starving to death or whatever.
Yeah, and automatically,
absolutely.
And they have to blame what's going on with the crops with somebody. So there's probably somebody in town that they don't fucking like. Whether it's the town drunk who acts really fucking weird, gets high off of ergot, acts like a wolf for no fucking reason, and then they see a wolf eat a child or attack a child outside of town who's starving and dying, and now you have werewolves in the Middle Ages.
Holy shit, you're blowing my goddamn mind right now, Tony.
That's what this is all about.
I'm all about that debunk action. So that's good.
I need to tell you guys about, and Dirty Mike is telling me how to pronounce this, Canute, King Canute, where he actually had like a law that was written that specifically said that there was madly audacious werewolves do not widely devastate nor bite too many of the spiritual flock. So like basically werewolves were everywhere, and make sure that they stay away from the ones who believe in God.
Right.
Or
did you freeze?
Or it's like some sort of can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
The madly audacious werewolves do not too widely devastate nor bite. What was it? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we hear you.
It could be some sort of thing to hey, if you're baptized or whatever your ritual is to like, you're protected by from the werewolves.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to get more of the pagans to come to Christianity, like if you come to this, you won't be killed by the werewolves that are killing all the people.
Exactly.
Sign me up for Christ.
This is also deeply rooted in Germanic pagan traditions associated with wolf men, persisted long in the Scandinavian Viking Age. Harold I of Norway is known to have had a body of an Ulfenar. The Ulfenar were fighters similar to berserkers. Though they dressed in wolf hides rather than those of bears, and were reputed to channel the spirits of these animals to enhance effectiveness in battles. These warriors were resistant to pain, killed ferociously in battle, much like wild animals. Oh, I can't see my thing. Much like wild lizards and berserkers, they are closely associated with the Norse god Odin.
Yeah, and I mean it makes sense. Like if you look at this from a logical standpoint, it makes sense that you would have warriors like this who would embody different animals.
Well, and this is exactly what we were talking about when we talk about like the Native American and European kind of people. Like that's exactly what they were doing. It's just it was carried on into the paganisms for the Germans.
And like you can speak on this, like I granted I've been in very few fights in my life, but like when you do get in that fight or flight mode and you do like reject that human
side of
empathy or whatever, like it is very like I know it sounds cliche, but it is you're very like tapped into that primal side of you that you don't experience very often. So I can imagine a warrior culture of people would basically be that far more than anyone else you can think of, right?
Yeah, I mean just think of it. You could come back from a battle and you were in a situation where you had to like viciously fight, and then Ragnar's like, I saw Volnok, he fought like wolf.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Vicious, and then you take that on. You
Yep.
Yeah.
Because that's the society that you're in.
And just like, have you ever just been like high on adrenaline for some reason and then like chugged a beer? You just feel like, oh, you're like nothing fucking, you know what I mean?
Nothing
like,
matters.
It's like that
you want
times
to
a
fuck
million.
shit up.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Anyway.
No, 100%. I'm totally
not a
with you.
violent person.
Not now. All right, so still in the 15th century, we have Peter Stubb, a wealthy 15th century farmer who ended up being one of the most notorious werewolves of his time, although he is also more renowned for being just like a serial killer. And so it's an interesting distinction between was he a serial killer or was he maybe possessed by a werewolf, or was it an excuse for what he was doing? He turned into a wolf-like creature at night and devoured many citizens. Peter was eventually blamed for the gruesome killings after being cornered by hunters who claimed they saw him shapeshift from wolf to human form. He experienced a grisly execution after confessing under torture to savagely killing animals, men, women, and children, and eating their remains. He also declared he owned an enchanted belt that gave him the power to transform into a werewolf. And what's important about this story is this is what really brings on the 16th and 17th century kind of pandemic of people crying werewolf and witch to everything.
Yep.
I got to point out because I mean it's just almost serendipitous, the enchanted belt thing.
Yes.
When you dig into people that have tried to kind of compare and contrast and even draw legitimate lines between like werewolves and something like say a Bigfoot, it's generally leads you down roads that don't really go anywhere aside from the whole dogman phenomenon. But one thing I did notice when researching that side of things is like werewolves seem to be wearing pants or belts or flannel shirts, and I guess that's where we get the whole transformation thing from. But a lot of there are accounts of Bigfoots in like little belts with gold buckles and like ripped up pants and stuff. I just wanted to point that out.
But I think
it's fun to think of a Bigfoot wearing Ross dress for less.
I was like, but that imagery is also, I think, too, to distinct the difference between just like a wolf standing on its hind legs and like a werewolf. So I think that they needed to add that kind of into it a little bit in order to just up the story so that you know that there's a difference. Not just, oh, it's not a wolf standing on its back leg. It had pants on. Why would a wolf have pants on?
Yeah, that adds the human element.
Totally.
It's transformed element. And that's so listening to that's actually reminds me of this is getting into the actual psychological disorder that is lycanthropy, which is a real psychological disorder where people believe that they can turn into werewolves. And that's probably one of the very first recorded incidents of this psychological disorder.
Well, and in the finding and the and looking into this idea is what ended up stopping this craze of the European witch hunts, because it became less about like, oh, the devil's inside of you and you're bewitching people, and more like, oh, these people are mentally ill. And there was that very big shift and change after the 17th century, where like that is where these kind of people, witches and werewolves and stuff, were more thought as mentally ill people and not somebody who could harm you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when they would like, that's where we get, I think a lot of like troll lore and stuff comes from, like people like ousting like people with conditions out to the woods.
Yep, 100%. So we have tons of werewolf attacks, and because we have these werewolf attacks, of course, we have people who are making claims. One of the things that Tony was touching on earlier is they kind of use werewolves as like a scapegoat for things. So it started off because maybe somebody fucked up and didn't do their crops right, so they blamed it on the werewolf fucking up their shit. And because people started to point fingers at things like witches and stuff, people started pointing fingers at, oh, well, this person could be a werewolf. And that what started out as something maybe not as malicious as you thought it was originally, because they just didn't want to place the blame on themselves, it turned into people specifically tattletelling on people because they wanted to get rid of them.
I'm noticing a common thread through about maybe 70 to 80% of this episode, and that is the word scapegoat.
Yes, very
much. Which I believe is very much often can be ascribed to these phenomenon. I mean, we've already talked about, local psychopaths, psychotics, mentally ill, bad crops, boy diddlers. I'm sure we went over that at some point.
Probably.
And it's one of those things where if you don't have natural science to explain away why the crops didn't grow, it's like, well, how about Gerald the diddler over there maybe is responsible?
It's his fault, exactly. And it kills two birds with one stone. You get rid of Jared the diddler and you're not blamed for your shit anymore.
The diddler. Right. And talking about the 16th and 17th century, I mean, they're already going after witches, right? So the witches were...
And that's exactly what it was. So they lived in this realm of, well, witches are real, so why can't werewolves be real? And I think that was also a point too, where it was like the counteractive to like a female witch. You didn't have a lot of male witches, and so now they had this outlet to blame men, and so you can get rid of the men you want to get rid of, not just the women.
Well, I would like to see the correlation between the women that were, called witches and identified as witches and burned or whatever, and how many of their husbands were said to be werewolves.
Well, you also had like, what do they call them, warlocks as well, which is
right,
witch.
100%. So
yeah, that would be interesting stats though.
Oh, for sure. Okay, so two of these people who were accused were Frenchman Pierre Bergot and Michael Verdun, allegedly swore allegiance to the devil and claimed to have a certain ointment that they could rub on themselves that turned them into wolves. And after confessing to brutally murdering several children, they were both burned at the stake.
How funny is it that his last name is Bergot, and the fungus that caused, the fungus that caused the hallucinations is called ergot, ERGOT. So maybe there's a connection there.
Everything's connected. Nothing is a coincidence.
Illuminati confirmed.
Yep.
Exactly.
Can we get a overlay of that sometime?
Of Illuminati confirmed?
We
absolutely, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. So we have in the same time frame, we also have Giles Garnier, known as the Werewolf of Dole, which was another 16th century Frenchman whose claim to fame was also an ointment with wolf morphing abilities. And according to the legend, as a wolf, he viciously killed children and ate them. He was too burned at the stakes for his monstrous crimes. And I also believe most of these stories are what the Little Red Riding Hood fairy tale is about.
Yeah, that's all very. It's just goes back to the predatory nature of wolves. That was a cautionary tale, if I'm not mistaken. That was a cautionary tale of like, yo, little girls, like, stay away from like dirty old men, basically.
Pretty much, exactly. Yeah,
right.
And their animalisticness of them.
Yes, they don't give a fuck at that age.
Let's just totally ignore how fucking stupid Little Red Riding Hood would have to be like, oh, how long your nose is, Grandma.
Okay.
100%.
It's a cautionary tale, Tony.
It's a tale for the kids. All right, so
she wasn't the brightest bulb in the box.
Okay, so how can someone become a werewolf, you guys? There's all these different versions of why. So, we heard wearing the pelt of a wolf skin while naked is one of the ones that does it to you. That's how you kind of solidify yourself to become a werewolf. You could rub your body with the magical salve that we were just talking about. This one's a fun one. You could drink the rainwater out of a footprint of a werewolf. I like that. That sounds fun. You just kind of like roam the forest.
That's like a Les Stroud Survivor Man approach.
And if you notice, these are very magical ways. Drinking from an enchanted stream was another one. In France, Italy, and Germany, it was said that a man or woman could turn into a werewolf if he or she, on a certain Wednesday or Friday night, stepping out in the summer night of a full moon shining directly on his or her face, they could become a werewolf.
I was going to ask, when do full moons come into all this?
Just wait. That's the very first one of it. We also have by satanic allegiance, which we heard, or being a cannibal, which we've also heard. So all of these things, we have kind of these like very magical things, these bad things that happen to you. You could get cursed by God. You could get cursed by a witch. You could just be a witch and turn into a werewolf because witches could do anything. You could be cursed because of like crimes that you committed. But Bobby, wait a minute.
All right, here's my time to shine, right?
This is not what happens inside movies. And this is not our idea of werewolves today in any capacity. And so this is where Bobby's going to really jump into things. And we're going to talk a little bit more pop culture and the movie side of things. If I can get this next goddamn slide to hurry up and play. There we go.
Can you imagine how fucked up it would be if you're like, God, I'm super thirsty. Here's a puddle of water inside a wolf print.
And then now you're a werewolf.
And now you're a werewolf. You're like, that's
a bad day.
Life.
Also, everybody ignore that I spelled modern wrong and just live your life pretending like I spelled it right.
Notice that.
These are motor wolves.
These are motor werewolves.
Here's the thing about motor werewolves. As alluded to at the beginning of the episode, much of what we know about werewolves today is strictly Hollywood, particularly the one that kind of was the pace car for this, and much in the way that George Romero's Night of the Living Dead kind of created the modern zombie. Lon Chaney Jr. starring the Wolfman. I don't know who directed it, but it has a lot of classic Hollywood icons in it. Universal monster Wolfman. What was it? If you get bit by a wolf, that was invented, I believe, in this incarnation of werewolves.
Like if it broke your skin.
Now, I don't think that silver and silver bullets is something contemporary, though. I think there's a few. I mean,
it is indeed 100% all Hollywood and fabricated. Yes, 100%.
Right.
So being bit by a werewolf is straight from Hollywood movies, and so are the silver weapons used to defeat werewolves.
I knew that was the next. I knew that was the next slide.
These were never. If you realize, we never talked about anything like that again because it wasn't about killing a werewolf in any capacity. Usually, being a werewolf meant that you had to overcome some type of tribulation in order to get the curse to be broken. It wasn't necessarily murdering them. It didn't become murdering until the more modern day times of life. Go ahead, Bobby.
Did it become motoring? Because
yes.
you spelled it wrong on 2 slides in a row.
So I just want to point out that women, your silver bullets are not going to kill werewolves.
They're not. No, it is 100% just made up.
The chat's going to get that joke.
You think so?
Maybe 1 or 2.
All right,
Bobby, tell us about some great
okay,
goddamn vampire.
I guess we're gonna
werewolf movies.
The greatest of all time, and this is highly debatable because there was another movie that's great that came out the same year, which I believe was 1982. The other movie is called The Howling, which I highly recommend.
Really good.
But in my opinion, the greatest of all time, as far as my cup of tea, fun, action, adventure, horror, comedy, practical effects, is going to be this one that I have on VHS. That looks like I bought it from a movie rental store called American Werewolf in London, directed by John Landis.
Yep.
Right there, bam, on the next slide. I got you.
Yes, right there on the bottom right there. And The Howling right above it, 1982. It's kind of like a Lost Boys Near Dark thing. It's like the two vampire movies of 1987. People often debate what the better of the two are. And then in this case, 1982 was The Howling, American Werewolf in London. The Howling loyal folks are few and far between, but they are out there, and I understand their arguments. However, my cup of tea would remain American Werewolf in London. Underworld, not a fan of those movies. We're going to skip right past that. Teen Wolf is a great. This is when we see the lore of the werewolf going out of the scary things and into the kind of teen comedy realm of things, which, we see that even now, not in the comedy, but the teen thing we see with Vampire Diaries and True Blood and Teen Witch, which was a ape on Teen Wolf, I guess. Fun 80s nonsense. Did the Twilight movies have the New Moon have werewolves?
100%. Yeah,
Jamie?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I want to say Jacob was a werewolf. I don't know, because I didn't watch that. I'm gonna be honest with everybody. I don't watch that, but
as much as I hate it, he was more of the traditional turned into like a wolf and not like the human wolf.
Yeah, not the human wolf hybrid thing. He was definitely more of like he turned into a wolf. Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen the movies.
I stopped watching True Blood when they introduced Were-Panthers, because I was like,
fuck yeah.
I don't know if I can go this far. Real quick, though, another one I just want to recommend. We've talked about Neil Marshall before, who directed The Descent and Doomsday. He did another amazing film called Dog Soldiers about werewolf.
Almost put that one on there.
Military soldiers. Also, again, like, go ahead.
I looked up the top 10 werewolf movies you should watch, and that one was on it. I didn't want to put, or the top 20. I didn't want to put all of them on there, but I almost put that one because I thought the cover was really fun.
Put it in your Amazon Prime queue. And then lastly, I just want to point out Stephen King wrote a story, I believe it was a short story called Silver Bullet. In the 80s, made a kind of a fun werewolf movie with Gary Busey and Corey Haim called Silver Bullet, which is also quite a lovely time. So that's my pop culture corner. Continue, please, Jamie.
I love it. All right, so we're going to get into a little bit of the more modern sightings today, because I do like some of these pictures and things, and we have some conclusions on some of them, including this one. So in 2018, a mysterious wolf-like creature was shot dead by a rancher in rural Montana, and even the wildlife officials had no idea what the hell it was. It did not look like a wolf. Its paws were like too small. Its ears were too wide set. They were just like, I don't know what the hell this thing is. And it went on for quite a few years where he just like had this body and everyone just assumed it was a werewolf. 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I want to say, they finally did DNA testing.
That people are trying to figure
and they did figure out that it was indeed some sort of a wolf, but still super fucking creepy and weird.
Why wouldn't they just jump to the conclusion that it was a wolf is what I want to know.
Because the wildlife officials couldn't definitively say by looking at it that it was indeed a wolf.
Okay. Maybe
so
it's
that's
a wolf
like what they went off of.
Bred with a regular dog and it made that looking thing. Anyway.
Exactly. All right. So now we have Texas 5/21/22. Not that long ago, everybody. My video of this is going to be super shitty because my computer's 100 years old. So I apologize to everybody now, but it's living its best life.
Figure out. Yeah, so there's aliens now, there's monkeypox. What about Wolfman? Yeah, this is really, you guys, sometimes this job is just too much. It's trying me today.
And I love this man's commentary. He's just so fucking over it.
This one is trying you today?
Yeah, it's trying me. This is from Amarillo, Texas. Amarillo, Texas. It shows an unknown figure walking around a perimeter fence at the Amarillo Zoo. The creature is wolf-like, I guess. It, to me, sort of looks like the Sonic before they, had to fix it. But anyway, it was spotted at around 1 a.m. in May 21st. Apparently, there was no sign of entry into the zoo. No animals or people were harmed. The city is now encouraging people to submit ideas for what they think it might be, saying, quote, "We just want the Amarillo community to have fun with this."
No.
And it's the internet, so good luck with that. Not backfiring, but we'll keep you posted. I liked your thought, Pedro, that it was chupacabra.
Yeah, chupacabra.
I liked it almost as much as how well you pronounced that one.
You did really well, though. I just like, if it's something serious, have fun with it, but I also want to know what that is.
If there are aliens, I think that like the Amarillo Zoo is exactly where they would end up.
We can make a movie about it.
I hate to break the news to you guys. It's a man with a headdress.
Correct.
It's a teenager.
Oh, what a bitch.
I know, right? Right? So the reason I wanted to play this clip is, one, I think that looks really super fucking creepy. But number two, God, these people's attitude towards the whole thing is so fucking shitty, except the one guy in the middle who's like, well, if it is something, I want to know what it is. Yeah. But everyone else is just like, well, I'm fucking over this goddamn bullshit. Fucking aliens and fucking cryptids and whatever the fuck else is out there. It's so sad.
Yeah, in blaming things on chupacabra is how normies get cryptids street cred too. They're like,
is that what it is?
It's chupacabra.
Chupacabra?
You're like, shut up. You don't even know what you're talking about.
I can
it's not
pronounce
chupacabra. Before we factor sci-fi werewolves in general, should we factor sci-fi that video? Should we go back and look at it?
Let's
just look at the freeze frame.
Yeah, hold on. I'm gonna
freeze frame.
Yeah, let me go back a little bit. I gotta go back a little bit farther. Let's see what I could do.
Quick shout out to Justin A.D. Maynard,
Hey, Justin from Australia.
Janet Sanchez hides in long grass. Pins
hey, everybody, darlings, lovers.
Enzo's here.
Spooky. Thank you, everybody, for signing up for our members and using all of our fun emojis. We appreciate it a lot.
Absolutely.
Vanessa's here.
Hi, Vanessa. All right, hold on.
That's it.
I think I need to go still farther back.
Thanks for showing up.
A little bit forward,
6 of you.
All right, where's that? What does the screen look like to you? What's it paused at?
It looks like these assholes on local news.
Okay, hold on. Let me go back a little bit farther. There we go. Okay, bam.
All right, here's the one thing that sticks out to me that's most intriguing. If you wanted to go down the route of convincing you that this was a hoax, the proportions are really fucking creepy.
Yeah, they make no sense.
They are.
Like if it's
like
a hoax,
the way it's
a
standing.
Yes.
So it's definitely hunched over. Its center grabbed. That like head is over the knees, which are bent,
and its butt is sticking out.
Is there no video, or is it just these pictures?
So that's the funny thing,
frame, right?
So they said that it was a video of it walking, but I don't believe the zoo released the video. I believe they only released the pictures.
This is bullshit.
All right, yeah.
If they're not going to show the video, like, there's no reason to put it on the air. Like, if the video's that bad, they're not going to. They just want to fill time. This 100%. Is not a werewolf. This is some sort of camera artifact or like a weird piece of smoke for whatever reason that they freeze frame right there. I don't know.
It was probably
it was a forest fire.
They told the intern, "Hey, dude, dress up like this and go fucking
yes."
Around out.
This is how journalism works.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So I think it's
24-hour news cycle.
I think it's important that we mention what else a werewolf could be, because we said a few times, like the dog man. I think that's a very werewolf-like creature. We have skinwalkers, which I think can be confused as werewolves. And I think that you could also probably have some bears out there that look scrawny enough to look like a giant werewolf, but it's actually a bear. You know what I mean? I think that it's so hard when it goes into the werewolf name of things, because I feel like werewolf is kind of like a blanket term for a half, or not even a half, a humanoid version of a werewolf. And there's a lot more specifics that we can get into, specifically when you get into like regions or countries or things like that, where they have different versions of it.
Yeah. Look, do you want to go, Bobby?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I think when we look at just the vast history of the lore, and once again, we got into a topic that we didn't know was as deep as we realized it was initially. Mm-hmm. But this is this has deep roots in very serious things in a lot of different societies. And unfortunately, it's been turned into this Hollywood trope that is kind of sad when you look at, how different societies viewed it and how they treated it. And if you look at like how we domesticated dogs and kind of villainized the dogs that we couldn't domesticate, and then you have drugs coming into it, natural drugs coming into it, and just bad people that were just classified as this. I think it's a tragic story.
So are you really sci-fi or middle bitch?
Yeah. What do you? Yeah. Do it right off the top. What are you?
I'm gonna say we're leaning closer around like 8.5, 9.
Wow.
Okay, I respect it. I respect it.
You're on the fact side.
I'm on the fact side. I think not so much the mythological part of it, but more the warrior part of it. You had these people who embodied this spirituality, actual werewolves, before it became this kind of fucked up the natives. Before it became like this fucked up story that they used to fucking kill people.
I'm right there with you, Tony, but just a little bit behind you. I'd give it like maybe a 6 or a 7, and I'm on that same track of, when it comes to any sort of native people of land, and when they have stories of this, I see it. I understand the way they're talking about to embody this, and I can see how it gets passed down through generations. And so I'm gonna have to be on the werewolf side of things on this one as well. I feel like I'm middle bitching it, but I'm leaning towards fact.
Okay.
Awesome.
There's a lot of things to consider here when deciding between sci-fi, middle bitching, and fact. Some things I knew, some things I definitely learned. I would say that I was less skeptical coming into this episode, but ironically, Tony has brought to light some things to consider that really tickle the skepticism, not skepticism, but like the explanation, like the logical explanation of it all.
Yeah, the human part of your brain that wants you to connect the dots.
Yeah. But all that said, I think a lot of this is based in lore and mythology and scapegoating and like you were saying about the bad omens, curses, the way people looked at the world at that time. But as I've mentioned before, I am a John Keelian. I am a Keelian. So if we go in the hyperstitious route / the spectrum route, you have folklore and mythology based on these real life things being inserted by the culture into the zeitgeist and into the population. Whereas I think that possibly that managed to manifest a real supernatural creature as an archetype to explain things that we cannot understand. So it's interesting, and I don't know if this is exclusive to werewolves, but it's like the lore itself fueled its real supernatural existence, I guess. That said, I'm going to go a hard middle bitch 5.
That's okay. I like it. I respect it. I think that that's a solid place. I think that, again, I think all of us are leaning into that idea of if there is ancient knowledge of it, then there has to be some sort of truth to it.
And keep in mind too, this is a little different than a fact or sci-fi regarding Dogman.
Exactly.
Easily be explained by one another. I'm going strictly on what we've just talked about.
Just what we talked about. So we are at the end here.
Hey, hold on.
Final thoughts. Yeah.
One more thing. We haven't done this in a while. Let's ask the chat. Fact or sci-fi and werewolves.
And everyone keeps talking about the emojis. We're going to have factor sci-fi emojis and middle bitch emojis soon. We have to have more subscribers in order to add more emojis in. So we can have like 7 right now. And then the more people, I think we needed 4 more, which we might have gotten tonight. And then I can add like 4 more emojis. So we'll be starting to add the collection, all of those inside of there for you. I do want to remind everybody that we do this every Tuesday. So we will be seeing you next Tuesday for Bobby's Cryptid Corner.
Well, the audience doesn't seem interested in saying sci-fi or Josh Godson says it's sci-fi.
So there was a few of them that I was showing as they were saying them, and like Janet said that it was a fact for her. So there was a few of them that were just earlier, Bibby, that were doing it.
Right.
All right, cool. Solid B,
Let's do
Danielle, or
solid
solid
eight.
8. That's like a
That's
B.
solid
It's like a
eight.
B.
Tony's
plus.
wife.
B.
Tony's wife.
Yep.
Tony's wife. I do have one more thing I do want to share with everybody too. So let me
We
go
got
ahead
another.
and share my screen. Do we? Oh, thank you so much, darling. I'll do you in just a second. I'll throw you up there so everybody can see it. We do. I want to talk to everybody about merch real quick. Thank you, new member, darling. Thank you. We do have some new merch here. We do have the Chatty Daddy underwear. A lot of people in Chad's chat were asking for it. It is there. They are expensive. I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do about it. They're expensive to make. We do have the I Peach Butt Stuff shirts, the I Love Cryptids, the UFO Yes, the UAP Knows. We got Stoner Sundays, UK version, and regular, and so much more. So make sure if you guys want good merch, Bree's not here, so we'll show everybody Jerry. I think that if anyone ever does a show and they wear this, I'll direct Bree to it so she could be angry because she fucking hates Jerry.
I want one of those.
So make sure everybody, I think we should all just wear them every time we do shows with her so she can be fucking angry. And so make sure you guys go get your merch. We already have tons of people who already got it and they look so cute wearing it. Send me your pictures and I will post them on our Twitter and in our Discord so everybody can see how cute you are in your guys' stuff.
I'll say this episode, like, researching this and looking this up really kind of changed my perspective on it, because like when we first said we were going to do werewolves, I was like, oh fuck, okay, this is total bullshit, right? And then I started looking into it and I was like, ah, fuck, maybe there's an explanation. Shit.
Well, I think you presented the explanation and not the supernatural one at that. And for whatever reason, you're like an 8 on the scale. So I don't know. I don't know what that means.
I love it. Merch, everybody, is at that one time I was abducted by aliens.com.
Yes, do it.
Bye.
We can ship to you soon too, Justin. I'll adjust it so you can have one. It'll say Australia only. So my thing is when we do these merches, I'm trying to make it so that when you order it from the country that's made from. So like people in America are ordering stuff from America and people in the UK are ordering it from UK, so they don't have to deal with shitty shipping. So that's why sometimes you'll see on the site
or
UK
child
only.
labor.
Or child labor, exactly. So if you don't see it now, just like DM me or something and I'll get something up there for you. It's super easy for me to do. So any other final thoughts of the nights, you guys?
Yeah, sorry if anybody watches from China.
Yeah, I apologize. China.
Have you guys seen the YouTube video of someone playing bass guitar to Trump saying China over and over again?
No, is it good?
It's amazing. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
One last thing before I get out. Mermaids aren't real. Okay,
that's fine. All right. Bye, guys. We'll see you next Tuesday. I won't be here. Bree will. Bye.